the world could avoid 30% of all deaths and 50% of all healthcare costs. Okay, let's just dive right into this, because wow, that is a massive, incredibly bold claim. And it's been going absolutely viral lately. But here's the wild part. It didn't come from a hospital. It didn't come from some legacy medical device company. It came straight from a launch event hosted by Midjourney. Yeah, that Midjourney, the AI image generation company.
So this naturally brings us to a pretty huge question, right? Is this the greatest medical breakthrough of the decade, or is it just another Silicon Valley fever dream? Well, today we're going to peel back the layers of this whole viral announcement. We're going to separate the flashy marketing claims from the actual harsh physical realities of medical engineering.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're looking closely at Midjourney's incredibly risky healthcare market pivot, hype, hardware, and overdiagnosis. We're exploring exactly what is really going on behind the curtain here.
So back in June 2026, the tech world was caught completely off guard. Midjourney, the guys famous for letting you type text prompts to generate those stunning pieces of AI art, they announced a totally unexpected, honestly wild pivot into physical healthcare hardware. They actually launched an entirely new division called Midjourney Medical, along with a device they're calling the Midjourney Scanner. It's a full-body imaging machine.
Now, take note of the terminology they're using here, ultrasonic CT. We really need to clarify this right off the bat because, honestly, the name is a little bit misleading. There are absolutely no X-rays involved here. No strong magnetic fields like you'd get an MRI. It's just pure ultrasound. Picture this. You stand on a platform, descend into a shallow pool of warm water, and microscopic sensors use underwater sound waves to map your entire body in 3D, totally without radiation.
Section 1. Hype versus hardware reality. Let's get into it. If you've been on social media lately, you might have seen some pretty wild claims that this machine scans with 1-micron precision. But the reality of their Gen 1 prototype? It's a resolution of about 0.5 millimeters. And the crucial point here is literally just physics. Ultrasound resolution is strictly limited by the wavelength of sound. So reaching 1-micron precision with medical ultrasound, it's physically impossible. That being said, 0.5 millimeters is actually on par with the clinical MRI. That is still incredibly impressive for sure, even if it's not the 1,000 times better claim that's been floating around online.
We're seeing a really similar story with the hardware itself. The marketing teams really hyped up a ring of 500,000 sensors, but the actual, verified prototype, it has exactly 358,000 sensor elements. Look, packing 358,000 sensors into a 70-centimeter ring is an absolutely monumental feat of engineering. But yeah, the marketing numbers were definitely doing some cardio there.
And honestly, nothing illustrates the gap between the vision and the current reality quite like the speed. The pitch is a full-body scan in 60 seconds. Sounds amazing, right? But right now, the current Gen 1 prototype actually takes about 20 minutes to complete a scan. They're bottlenecked by massive data transfer limits. We're talking tens of gigabytes per body slice. So that magical 60-second scan, that's a future target. It's not something you can go do today.
But okay, here is the ultimate irony, and perhaps the most surprising fact in this whole shebang. The scanner currently uses zero generative AI in its imagery construction. Zero. That's right, the AI image company's very first hardware product relies on classic signal processing and tomographic math. The generative AI layer is basically a future tense ambition for when they eventually need to process all that data faster, but it is absolutely not in the shipping prototype today.
Section 2. The Butterfly Chip Deal.
$74 million. That is the expected value of a massive 5-year co-development and licensing agreement that actually makes this entire scanner possible. See, Midjourney didn't actually invent the imaging chips. They licensed them from a publicly traded company called Butterfly Network. Each scanner uses 40 of Butterfly's FDA-cleared ultrasound-on-chip modules. And let me tell you, this was a massive win for Butterfly. In Q1 of 2026, their embedded revenue jumped 147%, mostly driven by this exact partnership. When the news broke, Butterfly's stock surged up to 56%. So Midjourney is providing the big consumer vision, but Butterfly, they're providing the actual FDA-cleared engine under the hood. It really proves just how complex this whole market pivot actually is.
Moving on to Section 3, the Wellness Spa Loophole.
Let's take a look at their incredibly aggressive timeline and see how this all builds. They demonstrated the Gen 1 prototype in June 2026. They're expecting Gen 2 by the end of that same year.
By late 2027, they plan to open their very first Midjourney spa in San Francisco. And their ultimate goal? Deploying 50,000 scanners globally by 2031. But wait, did you catch that word in there? Spa.
Yeah, the proposed 2027 San Francisco spa experience isn't some sterile clinical environment at all. It's designed as a high-end wellness destination. We're talking hot tubs, saunas, cold plunges, and a quick scan in these pools of golden light. They are completely reframing this whole thing as a relaxing consumer wellness visit rather than a cold, anxious diagnostic appointment.
And this is where we see what I like to call the spa loophole. See, the Midjourney scanner currently lacks FDA diagnostic clearance. So at launch, they are only legally allowed to show you body composition stuff, like maps of your fat, muscle, and bone. By offering general wellness data, instead of claiming to actually diagnose cancer or lesions, they cleverly sidestep all those incredibly strict, multi-year FDA diagnostic pathways, at least for now.
All right, Section 4, the math of overdiagnosis. To really grasp the medical risk of scaling this up, you need to know a very specific medical term, incidentaloma. It sounds scary, right? But it's actually a harmless, unexpected medical anomaly found during a scan. The problem is, finding one triggers massive patient anxiety, invasive biopsies, and tons of unnecessary medical procedures just to investigate a shadow that was literally never going to hurt you in the first place. Just look at how often this actually happens. Even conservative estimates show that whole-body scans flagged incidental findings in up to 40% of people. Think about that. Almost half of all perfectly healthy people getting scanned will have some sort of anomaly flagged that requires follow-up. And all that ends up doing is completely clogging the medical system with false positives.
Now, remember Midjourney's stated goal for 2031? They want to perform 1 billion scans every single month. So let's just do the math on that for a second. If you perform 1 billion scans a month, and 40% of them trigger an incidental finding, you are suddenly looking at 400 million people a month totally terrified by false positives. This creates an absolute catastrophic triage problem. That is, 400 million people calling their doctors in a panic, demanding biopsies, and flooding the healthcare system just to chase harmless shadows.
And, this is exactly why the medical consensus firmly opposes Midjourney's claim that mass screening automatically saves lives. The FDA, the AMA, the American College of Radiology, they all explicitly warn against whole-body screening for asymptomatic healthy people. The massive leap from, hey, we can see more inside the body, to we will automatically save 50% of healthcare costs is just completely unproven. Actually, due to all that overdiagnosis, it could end up costing the medical system significantly more.
So what should you actually take away from all this? Well, when you're evaluating these wild tech announcements in the future, try using this framework. First, acknowledge the verified facts, like that real SEC-filed butterfly chip deal. Second, recognize aspirational targets for exactly what they are, like that magical 60-second scan goal. And third, always question implausible hype, like that physically impossible 1-micron precision claim. You really have to separate the hard data from the marketing fluff.
We're going to leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought. As these tech companies push further into the physical realm of our bodies, the line between consumer tech and clinical healthcare is blurring incredibly fast. If you were killing at a wellness spa and a silicon chip scanner finds a shadow on your kidney, who is ultimately responsible for what happens next? Is it the spa? Is it the AI? Or is it the already overwhelmed medical system waiting right outside the door? Thanks so much for joining us for this explainer. Keep asking those hard questions, and we'll see you next time.